And yeah, I would like to very warmly welcome our esteemed guest, Arnold Dreyblatt. We are very happy to have you here, and we are very excited and looking forward to listening to your lecture. And we are especially happy because this particular event has been initiated by one of our alumni students, named Heiner, who's living in Berlin, and actually she's been the one who facilitated and initiated this lecture. So she's going to introduce briefly Arnold, and then we move to his lecture.
My first question with you, I started the question that shall I speak English or everybody speak Hungarian except Arnold and Jeremy?
Why don't you speak Hungarian?
That's
Then I don't
thought,
understand it,
speak,
and it's better that I don't know what you say.
Okay, hogy magyarul is elmondhatom a bevezetőt, ez volt a tervem, mert hogy ő is angolul nagyon sok részletben elő fogja adni a munkásságát, évszámú adatok. Tessék? Jó, akkor folytatom magyarul. Tehát ugye én ide jártam 95-től 2000-ig, aztán 2002-ben kimentem Berlinbe, és 2011-ben ismertem meg az Arnoldot, egészen véletlenül azért, mert szomszédok lettünk, egymás mellé költöztünk. Aztán egy ilyen műteremlakásban, és ahogy megismertem a munkáit folyamatosan, hát nagy rajongója lettem mind a médiaművészeti munkásságának, mind zeneszerző a zenei munkásságának. És érdekes módon nála ez a két dolog valahogy külön válik, mert ugye vannak alkotók, akik a médiaművészeti munkásságokat összekötik a zenével. A weboldalát megnézitek, ott is a nyitó oldal rögtön külön válik, hogy zeneszerző és művész. A munkásságát részletesen be fogja mutatni. Én csak annyit szeretnék elmondani, hogy mégis azért van ő most itt, mert Balatonbogláron, a kápolnában, aminek a történetét talán ismeritek sokan, hogy mi történt a 70-es évek elején. Szóval ennek van az 50. évfordulója, és ugye folytatom akkor. Szóval ennek alkalmából én meghívtam Arnoldot, hogy egy koncertet adjon elő a kápolnában, amit aztán eredetileg, és igen, szóval később más helyszínen valósítottunk meg, mert olyan hangosítást igényel, hogy túl kicsi lett volna a kápolna ehhez. Minden esetre egy koncert miatt jött ide, és aztán megragadva ezt az alkalmat, most a médiaművészeti munkásságáról fogunk hallani. I don't know if I can add anything to this, because you told that you will say all the details from... Köszönöm. Ha később majd az előadás után bármilyen kérdésetek van, akkor tegyétek fel neki angolul, vagy ha nem megy, akkor tolmácsolunk. Jó, köszönöm.
Okay. What?
Technical question. We have two options with the lights.
Okay, let's check it out.
Turn off the ones that...
That's one version, and the other one is completely out. There actually is some video that I'm going to, some material which is good that everything is out, but maybe we can just wait a moment. Yeah?
Okay.
Can we have less of the ones that are like in our faces?
Oh,
They
yeah,
are
right.
not automatic, unfortunately. But
Okay, then let's just turn it all off, yeah?
Okay.
Okay.
That was the first version when you turned it off. It was, yeah, that was better.
Okay, okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, for now, yeah. So, yes, I'm very happy to be here. I haven't been in Hungary since 2011, when I think I visited here to visit Miklós. As we'll see, I have some history in Hungary, and I've tried to reference that at certain moments during the talk. Maybe I just start with this image, which, I don't know, is that irritating to you, or interesting? So it was a 1985, I don't remember which square it was. A square with a date, like September something, November something, what could it be? Yes, and there was a kind of, near the center, there was a stairway going down, and there was a very old man who still made these signs in the original way, and then I asked a friend, Semza Tibor, if he could translate, and as an art piece I made this, I gave this idea. So I believe, if it's right, there's 22 districts in Budapest, and it's nice to show it because of course nobody understands this outside of Hungary, so, or only Hungarians, which I still have. I'm a kind of an encyclopedist, so I try to get everything in, and every time I do one of these talks, you know, in thinking about autobiography, you know, we kind of rearrange the narrative of our own lives in different ways. So I've tried here to try to help you understand a little bit how I began my work. My artistic production has been in many different areas. It's been a bit zigzag over the years since the mid-70s. Been working in many different mediums and forms of presentation, different interests. So I've tried to kind of organize this in some kind of autobiographical narrative, which is probably false, but at least touches on some points in the past. And as I see, I'm going to look at, first, tell you a little bit about how I began and some of the people that I studied with, since you're students. And because I came here this time related to my music, I will talk a little bit about that and play some examples how that began, and my work in media installation and in public art of recent years, and also in performance. I don't remember what my next slide was. Yes, so my beginning. So many of you maybe know who these people are. Woody and Steina Vasulkánál. I actually came out of literature, so or experimental literature in my undergraduate, and where I was studying Woody and Steina Vasulkánál, early video pioneers, the founder of the Kitchen in New York. They visited where I was studying and did a presentation. I was already a bit, this was a period where the first portable video, analog video equipment had come out in the 70s, early 70s, and I had already been associated or had been exposed to various early video experiments, and a new department was forming in Buffalo, New York, which I think was probably one of the very first departments, at least in the States, for media art, and which was founded, I think, in '73, but really got going in '74 when I came. This book to the right is a book that was issued some years ago in conjunction with a large exhibition in Karlsruhe in Germany, CKM, with some of the names of the important figures from that time. And I think this period was very important. I'm going to maybe look at also some, okay, this is impossible to read, but at the same time, okay, I should first just say that this department, in addition to program in video, early video art, also included a number of very important experimental filmmakers who are all deceased. In fact, almost everybody is gone from this period. And Hollis Frampton, Paul Scharitz, and also had a very interesting music department. And so I'm going to tell how I was interested in music, and my family is in some way related to the American composer Morton Feldman, who invited me to take part in the music program. I had no music background at all. In fact, I always tell the joke, it's not actually a joke, it's a true story, that I was absolutely a failure at music lessons when I was young. And, but through working a little bit with early analog synthesizers, I came into music, and at that time when I came to study in Buffalo, Pauline Oliverosnál, very interesting composer, gave a workshop, and that kind of brought me into this new music composition. John Cage visited, so it was a very important and interesting time. In fact, this is a performance where there's some very important names on it, including Ralph Jones, who was an early composer, Julius Eastman, for instance, David Gibson. Oops, does it go? Oh yeah. So I thought, I don't normally show this, but I thought it would be interesting. This is the media department, and I didn't actually. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Yeah. So I began work on with at that time early video technology. We had colorizers, and or we could color the cathode ray tube. I don't know what degree they have this background in analog electronics. So this is a very important aspect here that we were basically working with controlling the horizontal and vertical signals which control the gun inside a cathode ray tube. Does that make sense to any of you? Do you know how analog video works? Yeah, there's a kind of a glass screen of these old televisions, and what they call a gun is shooting electrons into the back of this glass, which has some phosphors which glow, and there are signals, actually analog signals, which control the lines that it writes. It's actually writing across the screen very quickly. So I don't get into too much technically, but our means of control of the image or of creating images was to control these signals. So this is important. So I'm going to show actually some of my earliest video work. I had just recently graduated. This is a piece called Lapse, which kind of propelled me out of video actually. And it's, I also think it could be one of the very earliest instances of stroboscopic video, at least on this scale. There are, does anybody here, do you know what a moire pattern is? Interference pattern. It's actually two cameras which have lines, because again I told you that the electron gun is writing, and they're out of phase with each other, which causes a kind of a pattern to appear. And then I took the color signal, which is also a frequency, but a very high frequency in the megahertz range, and I beaded two signals against each other. That means the color signals are very close in frequency, it's in megahertz, and because they are so close, just as like with audio signals, they are beating against each other. And this causes the color to go through red, green, and blue very fast. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of this, and it also represents some of my earliest audio soundtracks. I don't think even Heino or anyone has actually ever seen this. So I will do a little bit of fast forward so you can see different parts. Is there any epileptics in the audience? Anyone who has epilepsy? Maybe you should say this in Hungarian. No? Okay, because it would be dangerous. Yeah. Oh no, it's the wrong one actually. Go to this one first maybe. what I want to talk about is, so as you see here, the sound was partially controlling the speed of the oscillations. And one of the things that was very influential for me in studying with Woody and Steina Vasulkánál was their ideas about sound and image. So utilizing the technology or analog electronics. So putting audio signals into the signals which control the image, the video image. Again, it's not digital. So directly controlling the process in which the images are created, and also taking the signals from the video into audio processing technology. So there's a kind of a transfer from image to sound and sound to image. Okay, I'm just going to go a little bit further. Okay, and so now at some point I started to understand, because of my contact to composers at the university at that time. There was a very, very intensive program of contemporary music, and many very important composers were also passing through at that time. Strangely, this Buffalo was a dead city, but at that point was a very important center of activity. Alvin Luciernél, who I later studied with, came and visited and did a very influential performance where he used a signal generator to propel a snare drum, a little drum on a huge stage to make it sound. In other words, signals were bounced off the ceiling and then controlled or set this drum into motion without anyone playing it. It was a very influential moment for me to understand that sound is really, is finally the movement of molecules in space, yeah? And which is picked up by the ear and so forth, but to actually physically understand it, and it was very important to me that I could feel the signals in the room. It actually was creating what's called a standing wave in the room, which moved gradually across the room so that you could feel the air pressure in your gut. So we know this today from techno or in a sound system that has very low frequencies, but at that time that was not possible. I gradually became more interested in sound, and I felt like I was reaching a dead end with this image that I showed you before. I felt at the time because because of the abstraction of the image, I felt that the output of an abstract image, which was the program in Buffalo at the time in the video department, was unsatisfactory to me, and I became more interested in sound. I started doing some experiments with signal generators, and then in the filmmaker Hollis Frampton's bookcase at a party, I found a book by the composer Monte Young, who was an early Fluxus composer, or associated with Fluxus, and then I finished my studies and went to New York and then ended up studying with him. This is a picture of him in the 60s. And he said that he wrote early in the 60s that tuning is a function of time. And then I gradually realized that actually the signal detection that I was using, which was actually the signal detection, electronic signal detection, was also what the ear does perceptually. Like the ear, when you tune or compare two frequencies in your head, the brain is comparing these frequencies to understand whether they're in tune or not, or to perceive the relation between them, and that's what musicians are actually doing intuitively, even though they don't think about it that way. So I became interested in certain composers. One was Monte Young, who I studied with then in New York, and this is actually a chart from my notebook when I studied with him of the harmonic series. I don't know if you, so this is the naturally occurring partial frequencies or partial vibrations in any compound vibration. And so I began a kind of research over a number of years in this direction. This is Alvin Luciernél, who I mentioned before. Two very important, sorry I'm going too fast. Alvin Luciernél was also a composer who worked very much with understanding sound and space, acoustics of sound, the physical nature of sound, and creating installations and also compositions for traditional instruments which somehow make clear for a public the experience of sound bouncing off of walls and existing in space. So I think also what interested me was the aspect that sound has a spatial element which is invisible. And at that time, I was very young. I was in my early 20s, yeah, so probably not so much older than you. Here's a picture of me as I began my music. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can interrupt me
May I ask
anytime.
just one question? What was that book by Monte Youngnál?
It's from 1966. Published in 1966. It's
And
an
what
interview
was
from
it?
1965 from Richard Castellanes, who's who's still alive. But you were asking like when
The title.
the title is Selected Writings, but it's not in print, so it's hard to find. But the interview, which was the most important to me, from Richard Castellanes, is also printed in another book, which is also out of print. But this material is of course now everything's in the internet, so possible to find. But I became more. I mean, the important part is I became more and more interested in tuning, the relation of frequencies, and I had an idea to work with a music ensemble that would work with these principles. So, okay, yeah. Okay, I thought this is from one of my recordings. I thought to just play this a little bit. I was thinking, what can I play from music? I mean, it's already like 40 years in music, so what should I play? So I thought, as I play for you my first videotape, I'm going to play for you my first recording, my first concert. It's actually not totally, I did some installations before this. Our first concert, I have to even remember, 1979, in New York. And I did some experiments with different instruments. I was absolutely, without training. And I did a lot of research into musical instrument development, and I developed an instrument which I still play today, although it looks a bit different than that. I used a double bass body, and I strung it with piano wire to excite very high overtones of the strings. So if this works now, I'll just play a little bit of this. I may also fast forward because we have a lot of. Can we make it a little louder?
From your computer.
I go ahead a little bit to see how this could open this up. Slightly amplified. It wasn't as amplified as it would be today, but by performing on different activating different regions of this wire and playing very quickly, I could activate different overtones or different tones which are actually present in the string. I could emphasize them. This is without any processing. And then I go a little bit further. Okay, yeah, I made a lot of, yes sir.
Can I ask you something? Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like in the background, you could hear almost like sounds almost like percussion, maybe. Is that also from the string, or
It's
is
also
that like,
from the string.
it's
It's
also
from the string. I could, by playing in different parts of the string, I could activate lower frequencies. Yeah. So there's, it's actually very simple. It sounds like there are many instruments playing, but in fact, it's just me on one string.
Wow, okay.
And that's how that's why the sound of one string was kind of like the motto as I began my music. Yes.
Is this so-called drone effect?
Yes. So the drone effect comes from, so there's a hitting of the string, and then gradually I learned by playing in a certain way. It's actually a combination of striking and kind of brushing across it, and then the aim is gradually to get a kind of secondary layer of overtones that stay over it, that are constant. So you have this percussion aspect, and then you have a kind of a sustained cloud of overtones. Okay, the minimal is like, of course, this comes under the label of minimal music, but I think that's remained in some ways still to this day, that I'm kind of looking for those two elements. Although, I mean, here I have there's many different recordings now, LPs over all the years in my music production, but this is what a score looks like. So I started to work with a certain overtone system. I'm not going to get into this. I have one other example of an ensemble playing. This is from 1993 or something like that, from an ensemble with multiple more melodic. Here I have, so I thought I found this in my computer somewhere, from 1983, my first, 1984. Actually, I thought it should be 83. Oh wait, maybe it was early 84. No, the date is wrong. But anyway, it's an image from me performing of a photo that was taken at Theater Skani. I'm sure this is 83, maybe the magazine is later.